In this video, you will learn to multiply mixed numbers by renaming as improper fractions, how to multiply mixed numbers by using the distributive property, and how to estimate the product of mixed numbers. So beginning with our first objective, we're going to learn how to multiply mixed numbers by first renaming as an improper fraction. So it's really the same rules and the same things we've learned in the past, it's just now putting it together in one lesson. So for example 1, we have 4 2/3 times 6/7. Now this lesson requires you to remember how to convert a mixed number to an improper fraction. So what we do, remember, is we take the 4 times 3 plus 2. That's going to be your numerator. So that's the shortcut way. 4 times 3 plus 2, that gives you 14 on the top, and then the 3 goes on the bottom. Alright, so your denominator stays the same, the numerator is 14. And then from here you can simplify and multiply just like we did in the previous lesson. So anything in the top can divide with anything on the bottom. Notice that the 6 and 3 both can be divided by a 3. So 6 divided by 3 is 2, 3 divided by 3 is 1. And then 14 and 7, you can divide both by 7 to get 2 and 1. So now we have 2 times 2 to get 4 on the top, and then 1 times 1 on the bottom would give you 1. So your solution is 4 over 1, which would equal 4. Here is a second example, where now we have two mixed numbers. So to begin, you want to convert both to improper fractions. The first mixed number, we do 2 times 9 plus 4. That would give you 22 on the top, and the denominator stays the same as a 9. The second mixed number, we do 3 times 11 plus 3. That's 33 plus 3, or 36 on the top, and that goes over 11. So now we have 22 ninths times 36 over 11, and anything in the top can divide with anything on the bottom. So notice that 22 and 11 both can be divided by 11 to get 2 and 1. Then 36 and 9 both can be divided by 9 to get 4 and 1. So now we have 2 times 4, or 8 on the top, over 1 times 1, which is 1 on the bottom. So our solution is 8 over 1, which would equal 8. We'll do one more example like this, where now we have 5 1/4 times 3 5/6. So again, you want to convert both mixed numbers to improper fractions. The first one, we do 5 times 4 plus 1, that's 21, goes on the top, and the 4 goes on the bottom. And then 3 5/6, we would do 3 times 6 plus 5 to get 23, and then 6 goes on the bottom. Then from here we can simplify. Anything in the top can divide with anything on the bottom. 21 and 6 both can be divided by 3 to get 7 and 2. And that is as far as we can take it. So now we just multiply 7 times 23. That would give you 21, carry the 2, that's going to be 1, 6, 1, and then 4 times 2 is 8. Now it's typically best to write your final answer as a mixed number. So convert this 161 over 8 back to a mixed number by dividing 161 by 8. Well, 8 goes into 16 2 times. We subtract, we get 0, bring down the 1. So 8 goes into 1 0 times. 0 times 8 is 0. Subtract, we get 1. So the remainder is going to be 1. We can write as a fraction. So write that as 1 over 8. So our solution is going to be 20 and 1/8. So always make sure that you write your final answer as a mixed number. That is typically best practice. Next, we're going to work with multiplying mixed numbers by distributing. Now this primarily is going to be helpful when you are doing mental calculations. So here we see our first example. We have 1/4 times 8 1/2. So when we distribute, what we want to do is we want to think of this 8 1/2 as 8 plus 1/2. Okay, so the mixed number you're going to write as an addition problem. So that's your first part. Now here's where the distributing comes into play. Distributing, remember, means you take this 1/4 on the outside of parentheses and multiply it by the 8 to get 1/4 times 8. And then we have a plus sign. Then we do 1/4 times 1/2. So basically just take the 1/4, the number out in the front, multiply it by both numbers in there separately, and then add them together. So 1/4 of 8, or 8 over 1. 1/4 of 8 is the same thing really as dividing 8 by 4, which would give you 2. If you didn't see that, you could reduce 8 and 4, both can be divided by 4 to get 2 over 1. Now we have 1 times 2, which is 2, over 1 times 1, which is 1. 2 over 1 is 2. And then here we have 1/4 times 1/2, so multiply 1 times 1 to get 1, and then 4 times 2 is 8. So we have 2 plus 1/8, which would equal our final answer of 2 and 1/8. So again, this is helpful if you're trying to multiply in your head, because 1/4 of 8, we can just think 8 divided by 4 is 2, and 1/4 and 1/2 multiplied would give you 1/8. So this would be much quicker to do by using the distributive property. Here is another example, so see if you can do this one on your own. We have 2/3 times 6 and 9/10. So to begin, you want to write the mixed number as an addition problem. So this would be 6 plus 9/10. All right, so then from here we take the 2/3 times the 6, and then 2/3 times 9 over 10, which is what we see right here. 2/3 times 6, and then 2/3 times 9 over 10, and the plus sign stays connecting the two. So 2/3 times 6, or 6 over 1, you would have 12 over 3, which would equal 4. So that would equal 4, plus, and then we can divide 3 and 9 both by 3 to get 3 and 1. 2 and 10 we can divide both by 2 to get 1 and 5. So we have 1 times 3, which is 3, over 1 times 5, which is 5. So we have 4 plus 3/5, which would equal 4 and 3/5. So 4 and 3/5 would be our solution. Now lastly, we're going to work with estimating products. So when you're trying to estimate a multiplication problem and it involves fractions or mixed numbers, what we want to do is round factors less than 1 to either 1/2 or 1. So we see, is it closer to 1/2 or to 1? And then for the numbers bigger than 1, you want to round to the greatest or to the nearest whole number. All right, so for example, we see 5 over 6 times 4 and 1/3. So this first number is smaller than 1, so you have to round that either to 1 or 1/2. Well, 5/6 is closer to 1 than to 1/2, so you can round that to a 1. And then 4 and 1/3 is bigger than 1, so we just round to the nearest whole number, and that's closer to 4 than it is to 5, so we can round that to a 4. So when you estimate, we now have 1 times 4, which would equal 4. We'll take a look at 2 more examples. Example 7, we have 3/8 times 9 and 5/7. So the 3/8 is smaller than 1, so we must round to either 1/2 or to 1. Well, 3/8 is almost 1/2. It's closer to 1/2 than to 1. So round the 3/8 to 1/2. And the 9 and 5/7, we have to round to the nearest whole number, because it's bigger than 1. So round to either a 9 or a 10. Well, 5/7 is bigger than 1/2, so the 9 and 5/7 would round up to 10. So what we have is 1/2 times 10, which would give us our estimation to be 5. And then for example 8, we have 7 and 2/3 times 11 and 2/9. Both of these are larger than 1, so we just simply round each number to the nearest whole number. 7 and 2/3 is closer to 8 than it is to 7, and then 11 and 2/9 is closer to 11 than it is to 12. So we can estimate by rounding to 8 times 11, which would give us our estimation to be 88. So in this lesson, we learn how to multiply with mixed numbers by converting to improper fractions by using the distributive property. Then we learn how to estimate products of fractions. And that concludes our lesson for today. We will see you next time.